This is Too Old for This Shit. Each week we dissect, discuss and critique the best and worst action movies from the 80s and 90s. You're listening to the podcast that puts critical thought into a mindless genre.
Booyah.
My name is Antonio and that booyah came from my co-host Josh.
Hello.
How you doing, mate?
Awesome. Especially awesome because of the movie we're watching this week.
Right, okay. So just, the whole thing of this podcast is Josh grew up watching a lot of these 80s and 90s action films and I didn't. So I'm seeing them with a fresh perspective.
And I'm seeing if they can stand the test of time.
Yes. Now, I'm very excited to see how we go with this film. You've really G'd it up for me a fair bit when we're talking about adding this to our list of films.
I have. And the film for this week is
Hudson Hawk.
Oh, yeah, baby.
So I literally know nothing about this film. The only thing I do know, I feel like there was a poster of it perpetually hanging in the video store I used to frequent as a kid. Like that image of Bruce Willis with the round glasses and the hat and the coat.
Yeah, he's got
burnt into my brain, and that's the only thing I can think of. It must have been there.
Yeah, and it's 1991. It's Bruce Willis. It's Danny Aiello, and
Andy McDowell.
A few different people.
There's a bunch of people in there.
So you remember this film from seeing a poster?
Well, that's the only thing I can think of, the poster. Apart from that, I don't think I'd ever heard of it. But just that Bruce Willis's Hudson Hawk image. That's the only reference I have for this. And then, of course, everything you told me about it, which is I am struggling to understand how it's all going to fit together.
Quite well, sir. It fits together quite well.
Okay.
I can remember exactly when I saw this movie for the first time. My friend Arev Chontikian brought this over to my place on VHS. He spruiked it to me. He loved this movie, and he showed it to me. And he was like, dude, this is the best movie ever. You got to watch it with me. At that time, I had probably seen Die Hard, Pulp Fiction, Fifth Element. I'd seen a lot of Bruce Willis stuff. I had never heard of this film.
So this film's about a cat burglar, and it's a musical.
Oh,
you said it was a musical when you first
musical
told me about
elements.
It. Okay, right. Okay, but it's an action film because obviously it has to be because we're reviewing it on this show.
The best thing is just to not think about it and just dive head first.
All right, fine, let's do it.
See you on the other side.
Nickel in his pocket.
I'm gonna get a cappuccino soon. I'm gonna strangle somebody.
I seem to have a thing for sinners.
Well, I seem to have a thing for sinning. Check, please. George, you're a little late. Maybe nobody told you. I quit stealing.
My employer wants a meeting.
Oh, I'm just kidding. Thanks for saving me, tough guy. Why was that car chasing you?
Because danger, Doc, is my middle name.
To pull the perfect crime. Everybody knows when the cold wind blows. The Hudson Hawk again.
All right, and we're back.
We are back. Yes.
So, okay. Let's. Should we just go through the plot of the film first?
Let's do it.
Is that going to help everyone at home who hasn't seen this film?
If you haven't seen Hudson Hawk, this is it in brief.
So it starts off in 1491. We got Leonardo da Vinci, who... I didn't think we were watching the right film when this popped up. But anyway, Leonardo da Vinci invents a machine that can turn lead into gold. So your classic alchemy thing. Realizes how dangerous it is, and so he pulls it apart and hides the pieces in different pieces of his art.
Flash forward to 1991, and Eddie Hawkins, a.k.a. the Hudson Hawk, a.k.a. the greatest cat burglar of all time, has just got released from prison after 10 years. All Eddie wants to do is have a cappuccino and go straight, but he's blackmailed into a plot to steal a horse statue from an auction house by his parole officer and a mafia family known as the Mario Brothers.
And this conspiracy gets weirder and weirder from there as the CIA, the Vatican, and these crazy rich couple called the Mayflowers get involved. They all want to get hold of the crystals, but for very different reasons. And Eddie has to go to Rome to steal more artifacts, and he falls in love with a nun, and then he has to stop all these people from building the machine again.
Look, there's show tunes, multiple running gags, and some really good set pieces. It is the bomb.
What the fuck is this film?
This film,
I don't understand how it came to be. It's just this ridiculous. It's just a mix of so many things thrust together for no reason, and then put into a blender, and then you have Hudson Hawk.
so initial reactions.
Like I was really intrigued up to a point, and then the film just got crazy. Like
So start with the opening scene.
Oh yeah, so I didn't think we were watching the right film. I thought it was like, I thought there was something wrong. I thought we accidentally got the Italian version because it's all in Italian.
And it's not subtitled either, which is really interesting.
It's that opening scene in Italy is not subtitled.
But it doesn't need to be, because you can get what's going on visually.
I'm glad you can say that, because not trying to toot my own horn, but I understood most of it.
Oh yeah, you can understand
being
Italian.
But yeah, like I was like, where's the cat burglar in this? And then after about 2 minutes, I've gone, oh no, they're setting up what he's going to steal later. So cool. But I didn't mind like the rhythm of the film, but it was just, there was some stuff in there that, so many choices, you go, why? Why does he have to be that crazy? Why does this have to happen? Why is it so bizarre? And I don't know. You know what? Coming straight out of it, the best comparison I can think of a recent film is Spy Kids. Robert Rodriguez's Spy Kids.
Oh, yeah.
It's got a similar kooky kind of tone, and, you know, the heist thing is kind of similar as well.
It doesn't take itself that seriously.
Yeah, no, especially considering Danny Agnello's character doesn't die.
Well, yeah, we'll get to that. That's great. But there's lots of Nintendo jokes. I love that the crime family is called the Mario Brothers.
Yeah, you see, that was... I felt like all of these, in a post-Community world, because I'm being a massive fan of Community, a lot of... I guess because I was of the time, a lot of these references to me felt really tired and overdone.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably part of the problem.
But for me, watching it, because the first time I saw this, I was 12 years old. So
Right. See, that explains a hell of a lot. I think anyone under the age of 14 would love the crap out of this film if they were of that time, for sure.
yeah.
Like, that makes total sense.
Because to me, I remember watching this movie for the first time and just loving it, because I was like, A, it's Bruce Willis, it's action movie, it's
Right.
really funny,
Yeah.
there's a lot of really over-the-top gags,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of great running gags in the whole movie.
Well, I'd say it's almost like a kid's film in a way, except there's probably some stuff in there. Well, maybe it would just go over kids' heads. I feel like it would have been better pitching it as like a PG film. Like,
There
for
is
younger
that
people.
really violent death of the parole officer when the butler slices his neck open.
Except for all that stuff. Like, yeah, if they'd have toned back the violence a bit and like pitched it as a kid's film, it probably would have been far more successful than it actually was.
True. This film was a bomb when it came out. A huge, colossal bomb.
Reading the reception section of the Wikipedia article on this film is a depressing ride. Like, there's just... It is just critic after critic after critic saying how terrible the film was. And...
Have you heard Roger Ebert's initial...
No.
In fact, it's unbelievable that anyone could have read the script of this movie and thought that it could be produced as a successful film.
Okay, we got Bruce Willis partnered up with Danny Aiello. He's like his, main man who owns the bar with him.
Tommy Five Tone, eh?
Yeah, look, as someone who holds gangster films very close to his heart, there were those parts of the film that I just loved. But else we got? So we got Andy McDowell plays the hot nun.
Who was not actually the first choice. She came in actually during production.
Really?
Yes, the initial choice was Isabella Rossellini, who you'd remember from David Lynch's Blue Velvet.
That makes a hell of a lot more sense as to why her character works in the Vatican.
Or why, and why her character is Anna Barag.
Anna Baragli. I'm pretty sure that's how you say it. You don't actually pronounce the G. It just kind of emphasizes the L a bit more.
Oh, okay.
I think.
We're learning
I could
things
be
in
wrong.
this podcast.
My mum will tell me off later. So now James Coburn, it's actually quite important that he's in this film because I read that he was in a film in the mid-'60s which was a spoof of James Bond.
In like Flint.
Yes, which this thematically borrows heavily from. Hudson Hawk does.
I haven't actually seen that film.
Right.
But yes, I believe you are right.
Having seen parts of the original Casino Royale, I'm very intrigued to see what this other James Bond spoof would be like, to be honest.
Well, and the other interesting thing about James Coburn's character, his name is George Kaufman,
Yes.
who keen-eyed viewers will remember is the made-up spy name in North by Northwest. So Cary Grant's character, when they go, we have a call from Mr. George Kaufman, and then the bad guys grab Cary Grant, but he's like, but I'm not George Kaufman. I'm not George Kaufman. And they go, yeah, right, Mr. Kaufman, come with us.
Right. See,
That's what that's a reference to.
this film is filled with that kind of stuff. It's filled with all of these nods and like winks for the audience to find later. I feel like maybe that there's that, and then there's also the outlandish humor of it. I feel there's almost too much going on.
So you feel like there's just too many things going on in this movie to make it enjoyable.
Yeah, well, maybe that's what it is, and that's what made it so messy.
Did you like the movie?
I liked some parts of the movie. I didn't hate it, but I definitely it confused me. I didn't necessarily fully enjoy watching the film. At a certain point, I was like, is it going to end? Where is this story going? Hold on, why are they working together? Like it moved along really quickly, which I kind of appreciated because a lot happened, some cool set pieces, etc. But
The pacing in this movie is immaculate, and we'll get into that when we go into filmmaking process.
and as for like other people who pop up, like Richard E. Grant, I was excited to see him playing a villain in this. Not excited to see his performance though.
See, let's get into the people involved, because Richard E. Grant, Sandra Bernhard played the crazy Mayflowers, who are this couple who are uber wealthy.
What does it do? He was a billionaire at 17.
Yeah.
Like,
he's kind of a Howard Hughes type crazy guy who's married to an equally crazy Sandra Bernhard.
who really ends up being the controlling one in the relationship anyway, and the one in the driver's seat.
But the elements that I like all those elements. I like that the fact that the characters are huge. Every single, even the small bit players have characters. The CIA team, who's named after candy bars, even all of them. And a good point to make, Kit Kat is David Caruso from CSI Miami. So the guy who always takes off his glasses.
Yeah, but why does his character dress up as other characters? I feel like that's never explained.
He doesn't. See, that's the thing. To me, it makes no difference. The fact that he doesn't speak, he only speaks using the cards.
See, no, that's fine. That's a cool gimmick to have. But he's got two gimmicks. He doesn't talk, he talks with business cards. And then, when he dies, the business cards go everywhere. Great. But also, he dresses up as people in the room.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. There's too much. He doesn't need that much. And as a matter of fact, he's got two gimmicks where the rest of the CIA team usually only have one. Like Butterfingers, it's in his name. He's this colossal man who's an absolute doofus, right? Whereas Kit Kat, sure, he doesn't talk, but then he also, afterwards I was reading up on how the film got made, and Bruce Willis is one of the people responsible for the story of the film. Which
Interestingly,
is
his only writing credit ever.
But is it really a writing credit?
You get a story credit. Him and Robert Kraft, who's the executive producer, but is mainly a soundtrack, like a composer.
Yeah, he's like he's a music guy.
So the way this film actually came about was Robert Kraft and Bruce Willis were friends, and Robert Kraft wrote a song called Hudson Hawk.
Wait, but doesn't Bruce Willis have writing credit for that song as well?
Yeah, they wrote it together.
Okay.
So the song then became the basis for the film. And when Bruce Willis had finished the second Die Hard and was in a position to do whatever he wanted, he's like,
of course.
Have I got a script for you? But building off the Die Hard idea, Stephen E. D'Souza, who wrote Die Hard 1 and 2, also wrote this film along with Daniel Waters, who was the creator of the original script for Heathers.
So, and this is one of the things I read about it, is that essentially, apart from, I guess, Bruce and Robert, who came up with the story, the creative team behind this film were the guys who made Heathers, and so there was genuinely a fair bit of goodwill as to, they made that. This could actually be quite good as well. And everyone was, of course, disappointed. The other thing I read is that also...
Not me.
Bruce Willis was making story changes on set, which now that I've read that, I go, that makes a hell of a lot of sense. Again, as to how it's stacked with just too much and it just goes everywhere.
I can definitely see what you're saying about, like, in this movie, there's everything and the kitchen sink.
Yes.
Like, there's so much. But to me, I like that.
Right.
I like that element of it because as opposed to like some other films that we've watched where there just isn't enough.
Right.
There's like no character. Even the small little bit players have character. And to me, that's what makes it such a rich film. And the fact that there's so many running gags, or the fact that when Bruce gets pushed out of the backside of the ambulance, someone flicks a cigarette out, he catches it and smokes it and goes, ooh, menthol.
Yeah, no, like there's all these little bits to the film that I think are fantastic. Like I love the cappuccino gag. Like that's great.
Yeah.
That's a lovely little thing to put a nice little bow on the end of the film.
And if you haven't seen the movie, Eddie's always trying to get a cappuccino.
Yeah.
And every time he's about to drink his cappuccino, something comes in and is foiled until the very last scene.
Yeah, so the first one, he's in the car. Tommy brakes hard and it spills. The second one gets shot out of his hand in the bar. The third one is poisoned. And then the fourth one he actually gets to drink out of.
He finally gets his cappuccino.
Which is interesting because it breaks the rule of threes.
Ah, well, you can't... Even a film as perfect as Hudson Hawk doesn't get everything perfect.
No, I seriously think this suffers from being too much. The characters are great, and it's great, as you said, in comparison to other films that we've watched, they've been developed more, but there's just too much going on. I mean, it was great seeing once the ambulance crashed off of the freeway or whatever, and you see there's a building for something called Collisionville. Like, that's a great little gag. That's fine. But there's just so much on top of that. And, Richard E. Grant and Sandra Bernhard are too over the top. Like, I just don't feel like it... Parts of the tone just went way too much in the other direction for me in some parts.
See, I like the fact that the tone is so over the top because to me, I just go... all right, I'm just going to sit back and enjoy the ride. Like, yeah. I enjoy that there's and it's all those little tiny gags along the way that make me sit back and go, these people have really thought about it. Even though you're saying that they were rewriting on set. But the fact that there's so many little gags and there's so many runners along the way too. And even like at the very end when Eddie's, who obviously dies in the car crash going off the mountain.
Yeah.
And then Bruce Willis goes, I believe it. But when he rides up, he's on the same donkey that the guy in the very first scene was riding on.
Okay.
I mean, obviously it's not the same donkey because it's 500 years later.
But it's a reference, obviously.
And the same thing when Eddie checks out of prison, the guard who's checking him out of prison and giving him back his stuff puts his coat over a picture of the Mona Lisa.
Yes, I did see that. And I spent the next 3 minutes trying to figure out why there was a picture of the Mona Lisa on the desk in a prison.
It's the prison art program.
Right. Okay. How many times did you watch this film that you know that that's why it's there?
I've seen this movie a bunch of times.
Oh my God.
I've probably seen this movie 10 times in my life.
I guess if you do enjoy it, it has rewatchability because I imagine there is still so much that I would still find in the film watching it again.
This is what I'm saying is it's so packed full of stuff. It's like an Arrested Development script or Family Guy. Actually, those are the two things that I think of most when I think of Hudson Hawk is Arrested Development and Family Guy. Right. Because there's so much in there that you can rewatch them or you can rewatch Hudson Hawk and see different aspects.
I guess it definitely does feel like a cousin to an animation. Like in that way, in that it just moves along so quickly, is so absurd.
From a scripting point of view, the pacing in this film is phenomenal.
Yes.
Like the fact that every single scene buttresses up against the next scene in a logical way. So like when Eddie robs the Vatican and jumps off of the chicken truck and lands into his date with Anna.
Yeah.
Like... that there's no break. There's not him going, oh, well, I robbed the place. I'm going to go home and get ready for my date. We're in the next scene.
And it just moves along. That was fine. I quite liked that.
The Brooklyn Bridge, when he's on the gurney and he drives past the exploding ambulance in Collisionville.
Yeah.
and then he goes directly into the next scene where we introduce the CIA characters. And then from there, he gets drugged, put on the...
And he's in Rome. He wakes up in Rome. Yeah, no. It definitely does move along well. But I feel like... Okay, let's get into it.
Okay, the people... So who can we hold accountable for this beautiful, beautiful mess of a film? It's not a mess. It's very well written.
So Michael Lehman directed it and written by Stephen E. D'Souza and Daniel Waters. As we said, the creative team behind Heathers. Yes,
Michael Lehman, who never really went on to do much in the way of feature films. A lot of television.
Yeah, that's what I noticed. He's done a lot of comedy, drama, TV stuff. So clearly that's his wheelhouse, and that makes sense for something like this. But yeah, not really much in the way of films after that, except for like Airheads.
Yeah, Airheads, Because I Said So, My Giant, Truth About Cats and Dogs. It's really interesting to me because he comes out of Heathers. And Heathers was an indie smash hit, came out of nowhere. This guy is blazing hot.
Yep.
Does Hudson Hawk next, and then that kind of, in a sense, aborts his career in a way.
This film confuses me. I just don't know where to go. Like, in terms of what to pick apart about what's going on. There is just so much going on in this film.
See, to me, that's the other kind of spiritual cousin of this, and you may not have watched these movies, but is the Bing Crosby, Bob Hope Road 2 films.
Right.
There is a definite homage to these movies in the double act of Danny Aiello and Bruce Willis.
And see, I quite liked their sort of interplay, and then that first heist in the auction house.
Yeah.
So the song thing, look, I think it's a cool device. Well, no, I think it's cool that that's his gimmick, is that he knows the length of every single song and uses that as a way to time heist. I think that's a great idea, right?
And it's a running gag throughout the film.
Yes, but the singing was a little bit too much.
It's too much in the sense that it's over the top, or the singing itself was bad.
Well, Bruce Willis can't sing, obviously.
Oh. He had a band for a while.
Really?
Yeah.
Far out.
Russell Crowe, 30-odd foot of grunt.
He was the Russell Crowe of the 90s.
Pretty much. Well, no, Russell Crowe was the Russell Crowe of the 90s.
Yeah. So the music was a mix between non-diegetic and diegetic, in that they're singing along to it, but it's not really clear where that sound is coming from.
Well, there's backup singers too.
I'm trying to... Wait, I don't even remember.
Yeah, there's female backup singers.
Yeah, right. So if it was non-diegetic, if it was just playing and then, like he's picking the safe and he's just like humming it along or singing along to himself, rather than their voices actually being a part of the soundtrack, I would have been much more impressed. But otherwise it just felt like a really weird tone to try to hit, and I just don't think it worked. It was a really cool idea, but then they really fucked it in the execution.
See, that's, to me, I think it's a cool idea and it does work. Like, to me, because just from the opening scenes of the movie, of just the fact that the guy who's the narrator is the same narrator from Rocky and Bullwinkle.
See, I knew the voice was familiar.
That
but I didn't
says it all. Where'd Rocky and Bullwinkle land?
Yeah. And see, this is probably why I can't appreciate the film, because I feel like there's all these references that just aren't relevant to me, to the year that we're in anymore. Like, the Nintendo stuff, fine. Like, I can kind of get that it was of a time, and the Mario Brothers thing obviously is still relevant.
The best reference, though, the breaking the fourth wall reference, I don't know if you picked up on it.
Very simple. There's a safe on the 7th floor. You take their thingy and you put it in this thing.
Directions even your brother could understand.
So that's Frank Stallone, Sylvester Stallone's brother.
And yeah, like that is awesome. You don't get to see a lot of that, and you kind of understand with the references to Nintendo, Mario Brothers, and all that stuff that obviously this is a film unlike any other we've probably seen before. And like, you don't really see a lot of fourth wall breaking, but now we're in a post Deadpool world. So
yeah, see, to me, like, and this is why I'm saying, like, this film is almost in a way ahead of its time. And I hate that term. I hate the term ahead of its time, because I always think of Greg Fleet's joke of like, this food is an acquired taste. Well, why don't I just eat food that tastes good now? But like to me, like that's almost what Hudson Hawk is. Like a lot of what Hudson Hawk brought to the table, comedy action movies have built upon that. They probably haven't built in the same way. I mean, like around the same time, and this is the Eddie Murphy movies, the Beverly Hills Cop, 48 Hours, Lethal Weapon a little bit.
Right.
But those are action movies that have elements of comedy. Like
Whereas
Beverly Hills Cop is an action movie where they cast a comedian to
in the
play
center,
it.
whereas this is a comedy film with an action star at the center of it,
Exactly.
which again sounds like a bad idea.
But see, the other thing you have to remember in the cultural context, Bruce Willis was coming off 2.5 years of doing Moonlighting. And his character, David Addison, in Moonlighting is almost an extension of the Hudson Hawk character.
Yes,
They're
I've seen a couple episodes of the TV show, and it's actually, he actually has, I don't think we've really seen Bruce Willis with that kind of attitude much recently. I feel like he's just become really old and grizzly, and whereas, he was a bit more interesting in Hudson Hawk than I remember him in more recent films.
But that's what I love about it, and it's before his hair fell out. So maybe it's like, maybe when his hair fell out, he got less and less funny, his receding, as his hairline recedes. This is my theory, okay? Here we go. There's an inverse relationship between Bruce Willis's hairline and how
his sense of humor.
And how funny he is. So Die Hard, boom, yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker, a lot of good one-liners. Second thing with Die Hard 2, Hudson Hawk, he's off the chain, he's hilarious. Starts moving back, okay. Die Hard 3, not the funniest of the Die Hards. Pulp Fiction, bald,
Yeah, done.
Fifth Element, he's losing it.
Fucking Looper, oh my God.
Mercury
depressing.
Rising, don't even get me started. So to me, like, seeing Bruce Willis play this in this comedy role, he's actually, and this is another point, of the action stars, to me, he has the most range.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair point for sure. He definitely is able to do a lot more than your Schwarzeneggers or, your Stallones.
Or Van Damme, for that matter.
Yeah.
But, like, to me, this film, and it makes sense that he designed the script for himself. Like, he fits perfectly into this role.
Yeah, but I also feel like he made a lot of bad decisions in the story.
That notwithstanding, could you imagine any other major action star playing that?
No, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he should have written the story, is what I'm trying to say.
Look, man, the story came out of the music, okay?
Which, again, is a bad idea. It's like starting with the finish line and then building your way back. Like, I understand there was a lot of interesting decisions made in this film that I can appreciate, but I could just read, I guess hindsight is 20/20, without sort of going through the reviews and so on and seeing who the two people were that came up with the story and the production of the film. I'm not surprised that it's such a mess and people hated it so much.
See, I don't see it as a mess. Like, I think it actually fits together quite well, and the tone to me is completely consistent all the way through.
The tone is consistent, but explain to me why the CIA and the Vatican and the Mayflowers are working together. I don't understand that triad at all.
It doesn't matter. See, to me, that doesn't matter at all. Like, we're in the realm of ridiculousness from the very beginning.
But then what do you have to hold on to then? What do you have to follow as an audience member to go, okay, so why are we here? Where are we now?
It's the fun. It's the ride of it. This is what gets back to the old Bing Crosby, Bob Hope style movies, is that those movies, like, the plot is very
it's just
thin.
a way to get gags.
This plot, though, I think is actually well constructed. I mean, despite the fact that it's
not.
It's inconceivable.
You can't say it's well constructed if we can't understand why the three villains, or not even villains, are working together. Like, it starts off reasonably well.
The Vatican could be a villain.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the thing. I'm not even sure whether or not to call the Vatican a villain, because really they're trying to stop these people from accessing alchemy, which Eddie ends up wanting to stop them to do anyway. Like, at the end there, he ends up helping them out. But that's the thing. So, yeah, but does the Vatican really have any stake in what the Mayflowers are doing? Is that why they're part of it?
The Vatican wants to stop them.
Right, but then for some reason Anna lets Eddie do his thing.
She never lets him do anything. She's trying to stop him from stealing the Leonardo da Vinci workbook.
Oh, and so they replaced the horse so as to not raise suspicion? Was that why?
Oh no, we're talking about different things.
I know, but still, like, this is all part of the
So
plot.
why does the Vatican complicit in the cover up of the original
Yes.
theft of the horse?
Yeah.
Because they want to lure the Mayflowers into stealing something on their territory so that they can
So
get
they
them.
can which I feel was, I think it was kind of explained by Andy at a certain point.
It sort of is. It's explained why they went along with the deception. I can't really remember. It doesn't matter to me though.
See, that's the thing. I didn't have anything
Bruce Willis
to hold on to.
sticks a bunch of needles into one of the Mario Brothers'
That was
face.
hilarious. See, that was great. But again, like, I feel like I haven't seen those Bing Crosby films, but with those, it is blatantly obvious that the plot is unnecessary. But with a film like this, where you have a 6 to 7 minute intro in Renaissance Italy, and as much as there are gags throughout the opening of the film, the first 20, 25 minutes are very much about the plot of the film and that first heist. And then you're saying, forget about the rest of the plot. Let's just enjoy hanging out with CIA chocolate bars and Vatican where they communicate through crucifixes and stuff. Like,
That's a great gag, though.
that is a great gag.
I love the gag where
I really enjoyed that.
that every crucifix is actually a communication device with the cardinal.
And I just love the phrase crucifix communication. I don't think it was ever said in the film, but I came up with it as soon as I saw it. I think that's hilarious. But again, I just felt lost. I didn't have anything to grab onto to keep me going through it. Maybe it's because I don't have as much of an affection for Bruce Willis as an actor, or like there was just nothing in there for me to carry me through the film.
Okay, so that didn't work for you.
No.
What did work for you?
As I said, a lot of the gags worked well. The whole thing with the spies named after chocolate bars. Initially, when I saw Snickers with his bar, I was like, is this really bad ad placement? Is that what I'm going to have to put up with for the rest of the film? But then it was kind of explained later. Like, there's a note here in my notebook that says Snickers bars, and then I've crossed it out because I didn't know what was going on.
And Almond Joy is...
It's played by Lorraine Toussaint, who I think that's how you say her last name. I probably got it wrong. She's V in Orange is the New Black.
No, Toussaint is...
Toussaint?
Right.
Yeah, cool.
Or Toussaint,
Sure.
for being French.
But yeah, no, like the performances of the CIA, yeah, I enjoyed that. And a lot of the little references that I did catch onto, I did enjoy. And the interplay between Bruce Willis and Danny Aiello was really good.
That's the main kind of Bing and Bob sort of interplay.
Yeah.
But yeah, because like in the Bing and Bob movies, they would quite often sing show tunes like at certain points. They would break in. They were quasi-romantic comedy musicals.
You see, that's what makes me feel like this film is just a bunch of references and not actually a film. Like, I feel like they've put the cart before the horse, and that they've put all the little cool trimmings on the end of it, but not actually put it on a bed that is interesting and keeps the audience engaged. Like,
Because the plot is too thin?
yeah, it just feels like there's too much. And so maybe all those references prevented them from actually making a film which at its base would have been interesting. Like, watching this, I am reminded a lot of one of my favorite TV shows of all time, Community, which is a massive, like, not quite fourth wall breaking, but very meta. And the thing with that is that, obviously being a TV show, it had enough time to really develop its characters, and then the references kind of grew.
See, this is the thing to me. To me, the two, Eddie and Tommy, are actually quite rich characters. Like, I get who they are very quickly, and I get their dynamic very quickly.
Yeah, but I don't necessarily give too... Well, I guess I do care that Tommy dies or whatever, but I don't know. I didn't feel a strong attachment to them.
Okay, well, let's get into the cultural context of when this movie came out. So it's 1991, and like we said before, this film was a bomb.
Terrible. It went terribly.
Terribly.
And we're talking peak Bruce Willis.
Almost, sort of.
Right.
He's coming off the back of 2 diehards and Moonlighting, but he also had just done Bonfire of the Vanities, which was a colossal bomb, Mortal Thoughts with his soon-to-be wife, Demi Moore, and Billy Bathgate, which wasn't a Bruce Willis film, but he was in a featured role, and it didn't do very well. So this is actually a little bit of a kind of a downswing for him.
Right. And yeah, it's, I guess, still relatively early in his career in a way.
Oh, very much so. But I mean, like, Die Hard was a surprise smash. Die Hard 2 did even better than Die Hard 1, which was unusual for its time.
Yeah.
And then this is kind of the next really big headlining film that he did, and it was his own project as well, and it bombed badly.
Right.
It also, I read, it was marketed poorly. Like, it was marketed as if it was another Die Hard, and it's very much not that.
No. Oh my God. That would be a huge mistake. But I guess, are you going to get people to come and see a comedy about a cat burglar starring Bruce Willis?
True. Like, I don't know how would you market that movie?
Well, see, that's what I don't get, is that it just must have been people going, this is Bruce Willis, we've got to make this film. I genuinely don't understand why a studio would have thrown money at this thing. It just seems so out of left field to have, like, it seems like it had a pretty decent budget. Like, who took that risk and why?
I think it was, like, even though the fact that Bruce Willis was on the down, like, on a little kind of mini slump here with a few films in a row that didn't work.
Yeah.
But, you know, coming off 2 diehards and Moonlighting, like, like, Moonlighting was a show that redefined a genre.
Oh, and Die Hard 2 only came out the year before, so it's not like...
No, it's not long between drinks. Like, yeah, Die Hard 2 is 1990, this is 1991, so...
Yeah.
No one is going to really blink an eye when he goes, hey, I want to make an action comedy Three Stooges mashup.
So it's just the case of, like, it's not really, it's that buzz is getting around him. It's like, this guy's going to be amazing, we need to get onto him quick, and so he's just getting whatever he can made.
Pretty much. All right, well, let's go to the filmmaking process.
I mean, I don't have a lot to say about how it was made. Like, not that I've already said before. Like, as you said, the pace of the script is good, and I definitely agree with that. The way it moves from scene to scene is awesome.
As a writer, I look at this film and go, this is an incredibly well-written film, just in the sense of the pacing of the script, how each scene is tied together.
Yeah.
And also the amount of gags that they can cram in to a movie.
Yeah,
and the running gags. I agree with you in some senses. Like, I lose a bit of the plot. Like, even though I've seen this movie probably 10 times, the plot to me is still a little bit flimsy in areas where I'm like, well, does it really make sense? But to me, when we go into that world of people, you know, pinching each other's nose and there's a doink sound...
I don't remember that part. Oh my God.
When it's in the scene where Bruce Willis is about to have his balls cut off by the butler.
Yep.
And he goes,
Come to think of it, there is a part of your body that you won't be needing for your next job.
I always did want to sing like Frankie Valli.
Big boys don't cry, I.
3 minutes, 27 seconds.
Look, you Eddie Munster-looking motherfucker, somebody better start telling me what's going on, or I ain't gonna move another muscle. I want to be treated like an adult. That's fair. Now go to your room.
Right, so that's a Three Stooges reference.
it's straight out of the Three Stooges handbook. You know, like, to me, it's like we're in that world, you know, and the fact that he uses a baseball, like, on his list of things to do to get to rob the Vatican, he has a baseball because he throws it at the window to break the window and then throws his grappling hook out to climb up. Like, to me, like...
yeah, I thought that was pretty good. And it's like olive oil, and that was so he could roll the mirrors over the floor. Like, I don't really have problems with that. Everything they hung off of that was a bit too much. And see, that's the thing, we're taking from the Road 2 films and also the Three Stooges. And then you're making Nintendo references and Concorde references. There's 2 Concorde references in the film for some reason. Like, I feel like how relevant were some of these things, especially like the Three Stooges in the late 80s, early 90s?
Probably not. I mean, look, the Three Stooges is more of a spiritual cousin.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's definitely that sort of. But even when when Bruce Willis is in the fight with James Coburn at the end, and he's moving back and forth, and because he's getting punched up and down, his back just moves back.
But you
and
see,
forth.
these are devices that I feel like people who were probably adults at that time probably would have appreciated from their childhood. But then, what's the point in having them in the film? I mean, sure, I am saying this in a time where we've just had La La Land come out and I've bloody loved it. But yeah, just maybe the references, because they weren't relevant or synonymous or not in the zeitgeist enough, it just doesn't
They fall
really
flat
resonate.
to you because you're not in the zeitgeist that they were created in.
Yeah.
So this would be an interesting test then that something like Community will face, the Community TV show will face.
And even Deadpool. Like watching Deadpool, he has like a Hello Kitty watch at a certain point. No, I think it was an Adventure Time watch. That is not going to last 10 years later.
Well, but it's interesting to see, to me, like which references do last, which don't.
Yeah, and I think that's an important decision to make when you're making a film. TV is different because, well, now TV viewing is different, but 15 years ago, if you were making television,
it didn't matter. You could reference anything because it wasn't going to be seen again.
Exactly. But with a film, I think you really need to make a considered choice with some of these references.
But we also have to remember that this was, well, it's not the early days of VHS, but to me, this movie gets better with time. Like the more viewings you watch it, the better it is. And because I watch it and I go, I can't fault a lot of the scripting decisions or the direction decisions. Like to me, the directing is actually quite good. Like he covers the action as if it's a comedy film.
Oh no, it's made well for sure.
And the dialogue is all snappy. Like there's not a wasted word of dialogue. There is some aspects, like the one clunky piece of exposition is when Anna's in confession to the cardinal and she's basically explaining the plot.
Yeah.
Like there are a few elements in there, I mean, where I'm like, this is super clunky. But then it's also, that's the scene where it's revealed that she's a nun.
Yeah, and she's not wearing the habit in the confessional booth and then she comes out wearing it.
Yeah, and to me, like that is an excellent scripting choice in the sense that you're giving a big piece of exposition. It's really clunky, but you're doing it in a context where it's interesting. So it's in a confessional booth. She's confessing to the cardinal, who's kind of like her boss. And then she comes out, a piece of character information is revealed that also relates to the plot, that raises the stakes for the rest of the film. Because, she's a nun, Bruce Willis has fallen in love with her, even though it's like pretty, like, she's the sauciest nun, I think, ever.
And it actually just reminded me of a gag I really enjoyed where at some point someone is hanging off of an aerial in the Vatican and the Pope is watching Mr. Ed in his bedroom and he gets his mitre and like beats the TV.
What's that stick called?
It's called a mitre, I'm pretty sure.
He beats the television with it. But I love the fact too that it's Mr. Ed in Italian.
Yeah, it's just being dubbed in Italian, which of course, like how hard would that be? Not at all.
No, but I don't know. I hate to break it to you, Antonio. Mr. Ed's lines are dubbed in the original too.
Well, that's my point. But yeah, no, I genuinely enjoyed that. Like that was a great gag.
When I see all these gags, I go, oh, these people are really thinking about how to tell the story and how to use every aspect of the filmmaking process to either put more jokes in or tell the story using what's available to them. So the fact that the television reception gets fucked up by Bruce Willis grabbing onto the Pope's antenna, and that's an opportunity for a joke. That's a motivated joke, as opposed to like an unmotivated joke.
But in that process, haven't they then taken out or not given enough room for us to really like get into the film? There's just not enough time for you to really stick with the story and have a reason to stay. Like it just keeps bouncing around. I'm still trying to pick apart why it is that I didn't enjoy it and you did. And I think even though you really enjoy the structure and the way it was crafted, and on an intellectual level, I can look at it and go and say, yeah, look, it flowed really well. But I don't think, the end product was probably what they expected it to be.
That's possibly true.
And I'm not saying that because of the audience's reaction. I reckon genuinely you probably would have cut the whole thing together and been like, well, this is the best it's going to get. And it's not quite working for God knows why. And I think it's just because it's just too much.
It's just so, it's almost like an animation. It's almost like Family Guy.
Yeah, but even an
making.
animation can have good and bad structure. And I still think that there is some parts of the structure of, or not the structure, maybe it's the tone and some of the execution that just isn't quite right. Whether it's because it fluctuates too much or some of the performances are a bit off in the film. Like
Really, whose performance did you think? Because the only one who I can really point to and go, her performance is a bit off, is Andie MacDowell. Like, to me, she
definitely is a problem with her performance, I reckon.
Because, like, even though I think what she does is good, I can see, knowing that they were trying to cast Isabella Rossellini and Mariska Detmers, like a French actress first.
Yeah.
I can see what they were trying to do with that.
Oh, Isabella Rossellini would have made that role totally different, and I definitely would have enjoyed her a lot more in that role.
Because she plays it a lot more kind of saucy, she has that kind of saucy European
and just even having the accent, like, it just, whereas Andie MacDowell is so...
with her southern accent.
Yeah, and just sounds like ditzy, so damsel in distress. And... Like she just can't do anything for herself. But even then, when she does talk to her boss and kind of has a bit more attitude, you don't really believe it.
She has a really good dolphin impression, though.
That's an example of a gag that I think was too much, and
that is bad. I'll take that one on the chin. I won't defend that one.
And see, that's the thing, is that, like, because there's so much in there, I can't remember the parts that went. But that's the case, is that they've loaded in stuff that didn't need to be there. Pope watching Mr. Ed complaining about reception, amazing. Andie MacDowell dolphin impression, get that shit out of here.
Yeah, look, I can't. Like I said, I can't defend Andie MacDowell doing the dolphin thing.
Here's a theory. Usually, in something like this, the audience has an entry point they can hold on to. In this film, it's supposed to be Eddie.
Yeah,
but
I would agree with your analysis.
But as soon as he does the heist in the auction house, he is in that world about 75%. Except for the couple of times where he's gone through the ringer where, he gets captured by the CIA people. But otherwise, he isn't really a point of entry for the rest of it, because he's really part of the world that the filmmakers have built.
I see what so your thesis is that he's not enough of the stranger, of the normal guy in a crazy world. He's not enough of an anchor because he's participating in the hijinks.
And with you explaining it even better than I can, that feels more true to me than anything else I've tried to pick apart about this film.
Right, so because he's not grounded enough, he's not the center of the crazy world that's revolving around him, he doesn't stay grounded enough, you lose empathy with him as the hero of the film.
Well, yeah, it just means that, that's what I was trying to get to before, is that there's nothing for us to actually hold on to. Because eventually it's just like, this shit's just happening, and Hudson Hawk might succeed, he might not. Don't really know if it matters. Oh no, Tommy's dead. Oh no, but he's not. Like, it just...
Look, that's a cheat at the end where I go, whatever. We're in the crazy world. Yeah.
I was kind of happy.
But that's exactly my point, is the fact that you go, yes, Tommy Five Tone is alive. I don't care that they've just explained away him falling off a cliff with a burning car that's going to explode. He goes, there was a sprinkler system and airbags. And then Bruce Willis goes, I believe it. But even the way they get away, even the way Andie MacDowell and Bruce Willis get away from the bad guys at the end.
The flying machine.
The glider, which is set up in the first scene. Like, to me, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's the scripting, that's the excellence in the scripting.
Yeah, see, but there's an example of really good device, which is using the flying machine. That's fine. That's great. But Tommy surviving, not great, because it has no context whatsoever. You've just disproved your own point.
What?
Because there's absolutely no context. The only thing we know about that car that's amazing is that it has a shredder in it.
But see, to me, like those tiny, all those little gags, like that's to me as a writer and as a film watcher, I go, the fact that there's all these gags built into it turns what would normally be a really boring scene. And so the scene we're referencing is when Bruce Willis wakes up in Rome and he's talking to Richard E. Grant, who's Darwin Mayflower for the first time.
In his limousine.
And he goes, getting a fax from one side of the car, reading it, and then shredding it.
And it pops out the back of the car.
Littering, by the way, so...
Yes.
Yeah. But see, to me, those little gags in the scene turn what would normally be a boring exposition scene into something more.
Yeah, no, and I think that's great. But what I was getting at is that we don't have context for why Tommy survived. What was good about that is that it just emphasizes how wealthy this guy is. He's so rich that he's got a bloody fax and shredder in his car. Like, I understand it because it is character building. It goes back to what you were saying before, is that these characters are really fleshed out quite well, which I agree with you. Yeah. But there's just a lot of moments where it just goes too far.
It's too, your idea is it's just too, because to me, I like that too much element because
but the rest of the world didn't. I'm going to keep coming back at you with that.
You know what? Albert Einstein, when he found out the theory of relativity, everyone was like, this is crazy. Nobody knows what you're talking about, Albert. And he knew that he was right.
Okay, so our final comments. I feel like the whole conversation has been a part of what our final comments are going to be, but...
Pretty much. I love it. I love that there's everything in the kitchen sink in this movie. The movie, to me, stands the test of time just because of the sheer ridiculousness of it. And there are elements, I will agree that there are elements where the plot itself, now I shouldn't say the plot, but the narrative itself is a bit thin and contrived. But to me, the fact that we're in this wacky world, I'm just blissfully happy to go along with it because the characters are so big and well-defined, and I don't see a lot of action movies where you're like, wow, this is a really interesting character. Like they breathe life into what would normally be rote paint by numbers action movie scenes.
Yep, okay, that's fair. I think that this film is just too bizarre. But it is both, it feels both of its time and ahead of its time in some ways. I still don't quite understand why or how it got made. Like, it still defies belief that it could be pulled off. I definitely feel good about having seen it. Like, it's just fascinating to know that it happened.
It's almost like a cultural artifact, you know?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, actually, I kind of think of it as like a piece of Leonardo da Vinci's art.
Yeah, right. Of course. Or like how the mouth on the Mona Lisa was the last thing that he finished.
That's a great gag, dude. That is a great gag. So the gag, if you haven't seen the movie, the gag is that he's about to finish the painting of Mona Lisa. Leonardo's about to
No. He's just finished his alchemy machine.
Yeah.
This is an important point that I want to pick apart. And then he goes over, and Mona Lisa's just sitting there waiting for the painting to be finished. And then she smiles and her teeth are ridiculously crooked and dirty. And you see the picture of the Mona Lisa almost finished. And there's literally a blank square over her mouth. That's the last thing he has to paint.
That's a great gag, though, because you know the whole thing about a Mona Lisa smile.
But then that implies that she's been sitting there the whole time.
Dude, in 1491 Milan, people had time.
So what do you give this film, Josh?
I give this film 100 out of 100 show tune robbery scenes.
And I give this film 2 out of 5 candy bar themed cronies.
Okay, a bit rough, but I think our
you know what? Our conversation brought it up from 1 out of 5 to 2 out of 5.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Thank God. All right, and this has been Too Old for This Shit. And now it's time for the obligatory social media plug.
Like us on Facebook at TOFTS Podcast and follow us on Twitter at TOFTS Podcast to stay up to date and send us any movie review suggestions. Make sure you also subscribe on your podcasting app of choice and leave us a review. It helps.
It really does.
By the way, if you hate the go to school, shh,
You may grow up to be a mule.
Or would you like to swing on a star? Carry moonbeams home in a jar.
I think we need to reboot Hudson Hawk. This film is actually no. You don't remake the classics.
No, you certainly don't.
A fish is an animal that swims in a brook. You can't write his name or read a book. To fool the people is his only thought. And though he's slippery, he's